Oh, oh God! What is
It's
that?
big, it's heavy, it might be
what is
fast,
that?
but it's
What am I
slower than
looking
the
at?
ICE M
What on
SUVs.
earth?
Why is it wearing lipstick?
How is this
Yeah,
an M car?
why
That
does
is
it
the
look like
ugliest
that?
effing thing
Where's the
I've ever
DTM?
effing seen
This
in my
makes the
entire
Aztec
effing
look
life.
good.
Hi, this is Veloce Midwest. My name is Austin. This to this, let's just get this one rolling. As you can maybe guess, either by that introduction or the video title or the thumbnail, this video is going to be about the BMW M Division, or more specifically, the M Division cars, the cars that they built from the ground up, namely the M1 and the very soon to arrive XM. And this time, I'll try to be more brief about it. Firstly, the M Division is the performance arm of BMW motor cars and is responsible for the performance and race variations of BMW's lineup of cars like the M3 and the M2, among others, as well as the M-enhanced cars like the M235i or M440i. Founded in the early 1970s to support BMW racing efforts, it was thanks to the M Division that BMW dominated DTM racing during the 80s and 90s with the M3, which got a street version that has since gone on to be one of the brand's most iconic performance cars. However, before all of that, the M Division got to make a sports car of their own, the M1, which was largely the result of a failed cooperative product between BMW and Lamborghini. The M1 was a wedge-shaped mid-engine sports car that featured a naturally aspirated 6-cylinder engine that cranked out 273 horsepower and 243 pound-feet of torque. The car began production in 1978, and in 1979, the M1 received a motorsport adaptation that was ultimately aimed for use in the World Championship of Makes and 24 Hours of Le Mans. The car also anchored a one-make racing series often simply referred to as Pro Car, which featured F1 drivers all competing modified M1 cars. Though competitive in the racing circuits, the road cars were quickly outclassed by other similar exotics. Ultimately, only 399 road-going units were made before production ended in 1981. Although the car has of course become a highly sought-after and now very expensive collector item, BMW M had to let go of the reins and go on to modifying existing BMW models rather than making their own cars. Of course, as we all know, this wasn't really a bad thing, with cars like the M3 basically going on to legendary status, with sales numbers to flaunt and performance metrics to make the M1 jealous. BMW M eventually became practically synonymous with German performance, largely outpacing older and more established Euro tuners like AMG, Auto Delta, and Abarth. Eventually, the M moniker found its way into lower trim BMW models and created a line of mid-range models that featured more numbers than the full-on M cars, namely the M535i. These cars basically served as a kind of middle ground between the regular BMWs and the BMW M cars for those who wanted more performance than the regular cars but still wanted something not so hardcore as the BMW M cars for daily use. However, at this point there didn't seem to be much chance of BMW M getting to make their own car again. They came close, however, with the Z3 and Z4 M coupes. The Z3 and the Z4 were originally sold as convertibles but were given hardtop roofs to distinguish them from the regular Z Roadsters. With the amount of performance modifications given to these cars plus their very unique looks, they were seemingly as close as M could get to designing their own cars again. But then, finally, at the dawn of the 2020s, BMW M was given a new shot, a new, mostly ground-up performance car for the M Mark. There was, of course, much excitement that was then quickly smashed when it was revealed that they weren't going to get a mid-engine successor to the M1 or something like an M version of the i8. What we were going to get was a large, fat, heavy, and rather ugly SUV that seemed to harness some of the worst of BMW's latest design trends. And perhaps more confusingly, it was going to share a name with a 90s Citroën model, the XM. But we're not quite there to harp on the BMW XM quite yet, because, to be fair, the powertrain did sound relatively interesting, and sounded very M-like, at least on paper. It has a hybrid powertrain, electric motors paired with a 4.4-liter twin-turbo V8 engine, making a combined 644 horsepower with 590 pound-feet of torque, estimated to launch the massive thing to 60 miles per hour in as little as 4.1 seconds. Sure, not as fast as many supercars or some of BMW's other M-badged vehicles, but impressive given the weight of the thing. And if that really does scream too slow for you, well, then there's also the meaner and much uglier Label Red, with 738 horsepower and a matching number of pound-feet torque with a sub-4 seconds 0 to 60. That is, 3.9 seconds, which really isn't a huge improvement. And I get that it's heavy from all the hybrid stuff, but is it really doing anything outside of sounding trending? Regardless of whether it's slower than the other performance SUVs or not, it's still certainly fast for a giant brick, but is that enough to make it an M car? I remember once hearing something that was claimed to be a German adage from the 70s or 80s. If you want something practical, you buy a BMW. If you want something fun, you buy an Alfa Romeo. And BMW took that personally. The analog driving experience of the BMWs of the 90s and early 2000s are the things of internet and car meet legend. The accuracy of the steering, the smooth shifting, the balanced driving, and superb handling. And to be fair, it probably helped BMW quite a bit that Alfa's regular sedans and coupes, starting with the 164, turned to front-wheel drive, which for BMW's adherence to rear-wheel drive made many see BMW now as the de facto fun Euro car, especially as far as those in the States were concerned. Plus, at this point, Audi was still the sensible, no-nonsense German car, Volkswagens were still for the poor, and Mercedes just simply wasn't focusing too much on anything outside of comfort. And for those who wanted that rear-wheel experience, the Japanese and American cars were mostly front-wheel drive, including some of the performance-oriented cars, with only a few exceptions. And the muscle cars at the time were only really good for straight-line performance. And no, not everyone felt that Miata was always the answer. BMW was now making good on their tagline, the ultimate driving machine. However, as the years waned on, the general consensus began shifting. Other cars began using BMWs as benchmarks and serious competition set in. As electronic driving aids became more pervasive, BMWs did become accurate in their driving, but to some critics, they also became numb. One thing I hear a lot from BMW and Porsche fans is that when it comes to the modern cars, they excel on the track. They excel so well, in fact, it's almost boring. There's no feedback anymore. Everything shifts perfectly. The cars handle just fine at any speed. They become so over-assisted you can do anything you want with little trouble, which might sound good until you start to wonder if what inputs you make really add anything to the experience, or if you're really doing that much actual driving yourself. The car becomes less of an extension of yourself, and you become more of just a rider or an observer who only controls the speed and the direction, and with little to no effort. And now factor in EVs and hybrids. When it comes to performance driving, one of the more notable complaints for most EVs is that they're simply too heavy. Sure, they can go fast, but can they take that corner at speed? Some, I hear, can do well at the track. In fact, I've heard that even some of the newer Teslas can actually handle their mass quite well. And that same goes for some of the more smaller and more lighter EV cars, like say the electric Fiat 500 or the Mini Cooper, and even the more mid-sized Jaguar I-Pace. However, the XM weighs in at a whopping 6,061 pounds. It needs as much power as it has just to move with any hustle at all. As for handling specs, the XM does have permanent all-wheel drive, and it features torque vectoring and a custom-built M Sport differential in the rear, and adaptive dampers with active steering, which is all very nice on paper, but how does it actually handle? Not well, from what I've heard. In fact, I'd say this is just the base laundry list of items needed to make it even remotely livable. Admittedly, this is all hearsay, as I haven't actually driven one myself yet. Wink wink, nudge nudge, my cue to any dealerships or owners would be okay with maybe, I don't know, a little look-see, little drivey-wivey maybe? Right. In some ways, this is a difficult car to parse, and lacking the performance of its non-hybrid rivals, and the hybrid rivals of some other makes, it seems at this time the ultimate driving machine has now become the ultimate advertising machine. Although with that said, it still offers more performance and more of your regular SUVs, but with a price tag of over $150,000 American, it's also more like the ultimate indulgence machine. But let's be fair. Some of our favorite cars aren't necessarily the greatest performance cars in the world. There's quirks and features. Some of our favorite cars are very flawed. And for some people, we can easily forgive subpar driving dynamics if the car is comfortable, quirky, or if it's a moving block of art. The latter of which the XM is most certainly not. It's not great. It's not great to look at. Full disclosure, I like some ugly cars. Or at least some cars people routinely call ugly. I love the Alfa Romeo SZ and RZ. Monstrous, but I'll argue bold. I can also prattle something off about the significance of it because it was designed by early CAD software or something. I think the stout Scarab has some charm with its over-the-top Art Deco styling. I like the schlock of the second-gen Thunderbird. I kind of like Edsels. I think the AMC Matador is really cool. I would drive a Buick Skylark coupe and feel cool. When I think of ugly cars that really are not great to look at, I think of travesties like the Fiat 500L or Multipla. I think of the Dustbuster minivans, though I kinda like the goofy Pontiac version, or even the obnoxious Rolls-Royce Cullinan I think of when it comes to cars that just aren't styled all that well. And now I think of the BMW XM. BMW said it was designed for extroverts, and that there were no regrets. Fancy ways of saying it's for people who have more money than they know what to do with, and they have no personality outside of it, so hey, let's buy the most expensive, ugliest SUV I can find so everyone can see how much of a statement I want to make about my endless wealth. I mean, I kinda maybe like the rear three-quarter view, although the C-pillar is a bit on the thick side, and some of the colors certainly look better than others with the body lines. But the pig face on the front is truly abhorrent, as if they thought the new 7 Series wasn't egregiously off-putting enough. The secondary color line that swoops from the C-pillar to the front is interesting, but it highlights a couple of other questionable body panels along the way. And did I mention the pig face? The label red takes things up a notch and decides to put lipstick on the grille, a potentially ironic move because I can't tell if they thought it looked good or if they thought that the phrase lipstick on a pig was something to achieve. It's a bit weird coming to this video off of my last video, that, if you saw it, was all about styling changes in the Jaguar brand. And going through that video, while I thought some designs were better than others, I didn't find any single Jaguar to stick out to me as truly reprehensible. It was a nice time really looking at lovely cars all the way through that video process. And now, here we are looking at the XM. Now, one thing I'm actually not going to criticize, like some, is the fact that the new M car is an SUV. Maybe that it's technically an elongated, modified platform used by a different BMW as opposed to a new M platform, but not that it's an SUV. Because whether we like it or not, they're what sells. And as SUVs and crossovers take over more and more of the market share, especially in the US, the XM just wasn't going to sell in likely as large of numbers as it will if it was a sports car. As an SUV, the XM can live as a livable daily flagship halo car that the buyer can use every day and potentially feel good about being able to use as an advertised flagship for work, family, and play. It may be less interesting to enthusiasts as a result, and really the whole M Division thing just kinda seems like marketing anyways, so honestly maybe we should just let it go and disregard it. But BMW wants volume sales and nothing more. If anything, we should have probably expected this. So, the thumbnail of the video says, how did this become this? How did a wedge-shaped sports car become an obtusely heavy SUV? Marketing. That's the answer. It's really all marketing. It's putting the whole M Division marketing push behind it to make it look like something it really isn't, all for the sake of getting people to buy it because of something they kind of vaguely remember from the 70s and 80s. It's for rich people without taste. It's for people who see M Division and think they're buying something special. And to those people, does it really need to say BMW? Are your friends really going to be impressed by this monstrosity? Get a Urus. Get a Bentayga. Okay, I mean the XM is 160 grand or 150 grand or close to, and if that's your budget, then maybe the Bentayga and the Urus are outside of it. So just get an X6M competition if you really need a Beamer. Maybe it's a little slower, but it's going to do more other stuff. And it looks better. Miles better. But an XM?
Stop it. Get some help.
Thanks for watching. Hey everyone, thanks for watching this. I really hope you enjoyed this video or got some insight or something. If you want to hear more of my dumb opinions, why don't you hit that subscribe button and click that like button and hit that bell. Even if you hated this video, even if you hate me, hit those buttons anyways. Maybe you'll warm up to me, maybe not, who knows, who cares. Also, don't forget to check out my Instagram where I do car spotting and basically archive the Wisconsin car scene through crummy photos and reels. Thanks again, and remember to stay tuned, you and your cars. Yeah, I guess I'm keeping that sign off. Maybe if I enunciate it better, it'll sound